edition! Cool edition! Okay, let's get this started with people. The Hobbit, The Hobbit, The Hobbit, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien. The prelude to The Lord of the Rings. This one. Lord of the Rings trilogy. You see that? Like, yellow ring, the red ring, and the green ring. Just zoom in the video if you don't see it. But it was published before those, and those are one of the most successful trilogies of all time. However, this is one of the most successful books of all time, too. In fact, since its 1937 publication, it has sold many millions of copies and has been translated into many languages. Apparently, the first line itself has been translated into so many languages that I can literally read it to you. Like, for example, in Hana Orla in der Edda Lebet and Hobbit. Dan hun tra vidat and Hobbit. Aulio I Darolne bio hobby. In una cavrono soto terra viavo uno hobby. Holosa man asoi hobbiti. And some sort of, I think this is Greek. Pretty sure the last one's Hobbit though. This book itself was actually started since 1929, apparently, according to the guy who wrote the prelude. Apparently, it is J.R.R. Tolkien's son, Christopher Tolkien. And this guy is actually pretty happy about the book itself. In fact, when he was young, 4 or 5 years old, his dad would read him and his brother, like, some parts of the story. And then one day he said, Hey, Dad? Yeah? Yesterday you said that, Bilbo Baggins's door was green and Sauron's cloak was gold, but today you said the door was blue and the cloak was silver. And then J.R.R. Tolkien went into his room and reportedly, Manly said this, dang that kid. Yeah, I like, just think of the worst word for dang. Beaver dam that kid. So, of course, that actually works out pretty well. And then he actually probably got pissed off. But then again, his son probably did help him write the book itself. Apparently, everything here is actually a really good, interesting story. So, Frodo Baggins from the Lord of the Rings trilogy is actually the younger cousin of Bilbo Baggins. I mean, actually find out what Bilbo Baggins actually did and how he actually managed to get the ring itself. The ring itself was actually given to a guy, was actually received by a guy, I think he was a goblin, and he always called the ring, my precious. And apparently it is a pretty precious thing. It's like one of the rings, and it's the only ring that can actually defeat anyone. It gives you invisibility powers. It's like however, it doesn't give you full invisibility. You know, like how in MC, you like if you drink an invisibility potion, people can still see you because of your particle effects. Well, it's basically the same thing here, but instead of particle effects, it's just your shadow. It's fadey, but it's your shadow. Also, it can still hear you. Like, it's pretty useless, the invisibility potion in MC Bed Wars, unless, like, the person who's supposed to keep guard isn't paying attention and you have speed boost and jump boost. The thing is, unless you're actually really alert, you can't actually see the guy wearing the ring or drinking the invisibility potion. In fact, I was actually able to kill a guy in MC Bed Wars, at Hypixel Bed Wars, by just drinking the invisibility potion, waiting for the guy to buy something and start spamming him with my dim sword. He had dim armor. And he was like, what the heck is happening? Because, like, he was trying to hit everywhere, but he couldn't hit anyone. Because I was jumping in the air! Ha ha! Anyways, back to the Hobbit. The Hobbit itself is pretty good itself. And the origin of the Hobbit story is also pretty interesting, too. The Hobbit was originally just written by the guy, by J.R.R. Tolkien, while he was, like, teaching a class or something, like, grading work. Apparently, he says, the tormentous work that all teachers are forced to do. And he just wrote that first line. Let me read it to you. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Yeah, that one. And apparently, all he did is draw Sauron's map. Strong's. I think that's how you pronounce it. Strong's map. And that's about it. That's how he stopped. And then he stopped there in 1929. And after a few years, he started like, hey, this is a pretty good bedtime story. And he tells his kids all that. And the kids are like proofreading for him. Like this thing about Christopher Tolkien did. Dad, it's a green door, not a blue door. Also, it's a gold cloak, not a silver cloak. Dang, that kid's right. That's what J.R.R. Tolkien thought. And then that pretty much happened. And then the next thing that seemed to happen is this. I mean, the summary itself is pretty good. Gandalf is still a wizardress. And Bilbo Baggins is Bilbo Baggins. He likes an adventure now, but however, he's not the hobbit that we know in The Lord of the Rings. In fact, he's actually the opposite. He's one of those regular hobbits, the ones who don't want adventure. They're like, staying at home is nice, it's respectable. If you go on adventure, that means you are dangerous, you are stupid, and you are unpredictable, which is bad for a hobbit. And hobbits are uncontrollable and dangerous are not to be living with. Cannot live with other darn respectable hobbits who are predictable, undangerous, very safe, and has a bunch of manners. At least this guy still has manners. He's still dangerous. I guess that's why Bilbo Baggins lost his reputation, because apparently if you did something weird and unknown, like, you know, like how in Marvel Comics, everyone tried to kill the Hulk because they just didn't understand him. Well, when humans don't understand something, they try to destroy it. Like, if you don't understand vegetables and why you need to eat them, you don't want to eat them, right? Yeah, that's the same thing as the Hulk. Hulk is metaphorically the vegetables. They are the same color. And humans are metaphorically the person who's eating the vegetables. I mean, they're both humans. Yeah, that's about it. Next thing that happens is all this weirdness here. Hobbit itself is actually a word that was coined by J.R.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien himself actually probably just made up the word up, and he just, I'm not sure why he made hobbits look elvish. So like, they're like dwarfs. They're like a cross between elves and dwarfs. So I guess they're like some sort of cousins, I guess, by genealogy. That happens, and all this weirdness itself is actually creeping me out. Rings are powerful. In fact, Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings actually made me reconsider, is the sword better than the staff, or is the ring better than the staff? Because apparently rings have magic in it too. But the next thing that actually makes the weirdness all go into is like how dragons are so distractible. In fact, the dragon here, Stalk, I already say that word. Okay, Smog itself is actually pretty distractible. You can actually distract him pretty well. And since you can distract him pretty well, just go ahead and steal his treasure. You can probably throw him away, like luring away from his treasure. But then you'd probably be stuck in his room forever, and you would have no use for the treasure itself. Unless you find a way out, which they did, but they couldn't take the treasure with them, sort of. Next thing that seems to happen is all this weirdness, too. The Lord of the Rings themselves are pretty good. Lord of the Rings are just like 3 rings that were created under a forge, and one of them lets you give invisibility, the other 2 are blah blah blah. I actually don't know, because I didn't read the book themselves. I tried to watch the movies, but they're so freaking boring! I'm sorry, movie makers, but they were so boring! The next thing that seems to... Sorry. The first movie was good, so the second movie, though... Ugh. But the thing is, I probably just rewatched the movies anyway. Also, I don't think they should have added the final battle in movie 3, because it was not in the book, according to some people. It was pretty fun. It was pretty fun, though. I'll probably rewatch that. I'll probably read like Harry Potter and Nevermore combined together. Now, back to the story itself. The Hobbit itself actually sold millions of copies. And I think that's the only reason why it's like one of the greatest children's books. In fact, a friend of mine actually read this in grade 4, and he said it was awesome. I wasn't really interested in elves. I was more interested in humans and magic. So, and I was more interested in science, and I didn't really like magic. But then again, I realized that it's one of the greatest novels of all time, and that if you didn't read it, you're basically a person without any common sense in America. I was like, okay, let's read this thing. So, yeah. I guess next up on my list is Lord of the Rings. I'll probably make 3 videos about them. Okay, correction, 6, 2, 3 summaries and 3 reviews. But the thing about The Hobbit, before I go, is that it's actually more fun than you expected. The Hobbit itself looks like... The title itself actually looks pretty darn boring. In fact, the mountains don't seem pretty good. Lord of the Rings actually looks even more fun than the cover for The Hobbit. Because they're like rings and a bunch of symbols on them too. It looks pretty much more fun and more magical too. But the thing is, I'm not really interested in symbology, and I'm not really interested in magic. But then once I actually let this thing go, I let this have a chance to take over me, it seems a pretty good book. It's also kind of rewarding. It's also rewarding to actually see people go ahead, get captured, become invisible, and do crafty things. And it's also a pretty good book for people who really want to change. It's also a book that inspires people to change, because eventually, after your own long journey, it doesn't have to include a ring and then killing a dragon, but whatever long journey you've done, you could always be a changed man. Lots of people have already proved that, and this book actually probably encourages children to do it too. So, hopefully, in the next video of this series, I'll probably just make Lord of the Rings number 1, the Fellowship of the Ring. So, hopefully you guys actually enjoyed this episode, and I will see you guys soon. In the next video, I'll probably just talk about the rings and Frodo Baggins. See you guys soon. Until next time, shout out, peace, and wear a helmet.